My name's Jill Rowe, and in this episode of the Different Podcast, I talk with Steve Chalke about another one of the Oasis 9 habits, this time being patient. From starting with a realisation from being in a dentist's chair to understanding that life is not meant to be done continually at high speed, we explore how patience can be the teacher of wisdom that will help us to do life well. We see the great depth in the wisdom of slow, and we realise it is no wonder that St. Paul described that love is always patient. This one was fun and deep, all at the same time. Hello, Steve Chalke.
Hello there, Jill.
You didn't use my surname.
No. Hello there, Jill Rowe.
Just makes him feel really official.
Oh, yeah.
I could use your middle name, but I won't. So
I've got two of the most boring names, don't you think? Steve and John.
John.
See.
I think it's quite strong, though.
Do you?
Yeah, I think Stephen John Chalke.
I think it's all pretty standard. Yeah. Anyway, Jill. Gillian.
No, it's not.
You're not a
No.
Gillian. Oh, you've not shortened it?
No, not at
You were
all.
always just Jill.
Always just Jill.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Can you imagine if I was a Gillian? So not me, isn't it?
Good evening,
Anyway.
Jill.
There we go.
Rowe.
Thanks. So, Steve, the other day I was at the dentist. This isn't a joke, by the way.
No.
I was at the dentist. So I was at the dentist the other day, and I was having some work done on my front tooth, and
sounds bad already.
I won't go into detail, but I love my dentist. He's fantastic. He's been my dentist for a very long time. But I was there in the dentist.
You're going to tell me you like going to the dentist?
I do.
Now. You
I
do?
didn't used to. When I was little, I didn't. But he's great. My dentist is great. Shout out to Q. Hi, Q. I'm quite happy at the dentist.
Wow.
Do you know, one time I fell asleep in the chair because it was like, a chance for a rest.
Yeah. So the dentist is your happy place?
I don't mind going to the dentist.
Wow. There you go. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. I did used to hate it.
It's quite unique, actually, isn't it?
Probably.
Your dentist must be something really special.
No,
anyway, you were trying to tell me the story. Yeah. You were in the dentist.
We're talking about being patient, and I was at the dentist, not as obviously as a kind of patient, but I was just thinking. I was lying there, and I was thinking. Sometimes people say to me, with the work that we do about the Oasis 9 habits and this invitation to this way of life that we talk about. And they say to me, it's all really fluffy and it's all the nice stuff and it's not really relevant, is it? You know, all that stuff you do. I mean, it's lovely, but it's not. And I was lying there in the dentist chair thinking to myself, I am so grateful that my dentist has developed the character trait of being patient because without it, he would be a really shocking dentist. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this thing about being patient is such a gift, and his ability
not to go mad with the drill.
Not to go mad with the drill, not to go really fast, but to realise that actually it needs to take its time. So, and I was just thinking about that when I was lying there in the chair, this thing about being patient. We live in a world where it's very pacey. We live in a world where everything's about fast and get it done. And yet some of the most important things in life actually are slow. And patience is really, really important, isn't it?
Would you be good on a desert island?
Would I be good on a desert? Doing what?
Well, patiently waiting to be rescued.
Yeah, but that's it. So there are some things. So probably I would be quite good at being patient because I've worked hard at it. But I don't think that the whole of life needs to be done slowly. But I do think that there are things in life where the wisdom of slow is a really smart thing. To your point, in another episode we talked about, sometimes couples come and talk to you and you're like, hey, just maybe
take it easy.
Take it a bit slower.
Yeah.
Don't rush into this.
Contemplate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some wisdom there.
I do agree with that very much. I think, in fact, I was in a conversation today and I said into that conversation, which was about how to diffuse something that needs diffusing, I said, and I was talking to the people who need to do the diffusing, if you see what I mean, it's their responsibility. Yeah. And I said what I often say, reflect on this and then respond. Don't react. You don't have to react today.
Yeah,
don't react and regret. Today. Reflect and respond. Don't react and regret, because you'll always regret that you didn't reflect in the first place. And I've learned that the hard way, because I am, as you know, Jill, I'm probably the person you're talking about. My whole life goes boom, 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 boom. So many things flying round in my life.
But that is true. But I also know, Steve, that if I said to you, should we go and get a drink? You would slow right down and you'd be really present.
Especially if you were paying.
Especially if I was paying. And I would be shocked if you were. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But so I know that you work and you function so pace really matters to you. But I also recognise in you that there are times when you go, right, slow it, because this needs to take time. So if I see you with your grandchildren, you're not going, I wish this hour could be over.
No. Do you know
you're trying to...
I don't know if I've ever told you this before. One of the greatest things that ever happened in my life is that I was chosen to do some leadership assessment thing. It was a big deal. I forget who did it now, but it was they've been doing leaders here, there and everywhere. And they agreed that they would do this assessment for me free that cost endless thousands of pounds otherwise. I don't know why they did, but they did this assessment that took a whole day. I had to answer endless questions, and then it was an analysis, and then they went away and analysed it all, and they came back to me, and it was all the rest of it. And I sat in a room. I took Cornelia, my wife, with me actually, and they gave me this feedback on who I was, and they said one really important thing to tell you is you are not a workaholic. And Cornelia actually laughed. Because she did. She sat to that side of me. She laughed. And I laughed a bit. I thought they were just buttering me up.
Nervous
And they said, no, they said, we've analysed you. Because I keep getting told I'm a workaholic by people. But they said, we've analysed you. You're not a workaholic at all. Because they said, have you ever wanted to come back from a holiday? And I said, no. And they said, there you go, you're not a workaholic. Yet they said, you're just driven by a sense of relationship. So there you go. I don't know why I told you that, but it was a great relief to me that I'm not a workaholic, which I remind myself of when everybody tells me that I am.
Yeah.
But I can slow down, and I like not doing things.
Yeah. And it's not just not, so I don't think it's about not doing things. I think it's about being patient.
Yeah, being in the moment.
But also, if you're, an artist doesn't think, right, I've got 15 minutes, let's whip up a masterpiece. No. They may go, actually, I don't quite know how
unless
long
you're
this
Van
is
Gogh.
Unless you're Van Gogh. But this might not. And you think about when you're writing, when you're writing a book, Steve, like the use of patience that you have to lean, because it's so not where you feel
years.
It's like a really hard practice, isn't that for you? But I always think, sometimes people use that phrase, don't you? Give me the elevator pitch. Give me the elevator pitch. And I'm like, should we just, why don't we walk and talk about it? And I can really tell you about it. And I think that culture piece we're living in, where it's seen to, as long as you can say it quick, then it's got more value. Exactly. As long as you can deliver it quick, it's got more value. That's what I think. Being patient brings a reversal of that.
Yeah.
Says, no.
I think that happens all round. I don't know if this is actually true, but I've heard this story so many times about the church that had a little saying in the pulpit, so when you stood up to speak, and it said, if you've not hit oil in 5 minutes, stop boring. And now I don't know whether that's actually true.
I can imagine it probably is somewhere though. Yeah.
But the point is, you can't hit oil in 5 minutes. You just can't, literally, you can't hit oil in 5 minutes. So you've got to take time to unpack things, and you can't understand unless you do research. You can't understand unless you stop and really think a thing through. Actually, one of the things about writing books, of which I've written many, as you know, is that the strange thing is, before you write a book, the publisher says, well, you write this book and write it about this, and you do a little sheet with chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. You write
the
it
outline,
down, and it's all there. And then you start writing it, and you realise only through writing it the outline's all wrong.
Yeah.
I've never written one book where the chapters turned out to be the chapters that I sent to the publisher in the first place. And you also realise how little you know. You think it's so straightforward, and then because you're having to ponder and reflect, you think, well, there's a huge gap in my thinking there, and there's a huge gap there. Yeah. So I often think to myself, the books I've written, I don't know if anybody's ever read any of them, but I've learned so much through that process of having to ponder and reflect.
Yeah, and to be patient. That. Yeah.
And then the other thing that for me is a big thing, it's a big thing because it's to do with my faith. There's a famous story in the Bible about Jesus, and he goes out into the desert, and he stays there for 40 days and 40 nights, and he fasts in the desert. And in some Bibles they put in a heading, and it says Jesus is tempted, and he's tempted 3 times. So the whole 40 days and 40 nights of being in the desert becomes to be about being tempted in these 3 specific ways that it's mentioned. But that's a text that somebody added. Yeah. Jesus is tempted in the desert. The point was Jesus was in the desert, and he didn't hurry out of the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. He sat in that desert to reflect and to contemplate about who he was and how he was going to spend his life. It comes right at the beginning of the story of Jesus' adult life as he sets out on his mission of teaching and including. And he sits there and he works out who he's going to be and how he's going to behave and what his goals are, sitting in the desert. And I do think it's been a challenge to me because in our culture, no one likes sitting in the desert. You just don't like sitting in the desert. What we want to do is, it's a bit miserable and quiet in here. Let's turn some music on. Yeah, let's put a film on.
Noise.
Let's watch something on Netflix. Let's nip out and have a good time. So let's get a takeaway. Let's liven this up somehow. Let's invite someone round. Let's get on the phone. When in actual fact, to sit in the desert, whatever that desert is for you, and to not despise it, and to learn from that lonely moment or that lonely place, and not to hurry out of it, to absorb everything it's got to teach you, I've learned over the years is an exercise well worth doing.
Yeah. And that thing it's a Eastern tradition, kind of a Buddhist tradition of this, where you bow to the teacher. I'm not suggesting that our students walk in and bow to the teachers.
I've been to schools where they actually do that still.
But there is a...
Not ours, I should.
No, not ours. Oh, dear God, I hope it's not ours. But there is a thing, isn't there, of saying, in this experience I'm in this, the fact that I'm having to wait, in the fact that I'm having to sit in a queue in the traffic, the fact that this queue at the supermarket is longer than I would like it to be, dare I bow to the teacher of this experience? Because right in this experience, do you know, and I think, so back to my dentist, where did Q, my dentist, learn to be patient? It was probably in the supermarket queue. It was watching his mum. It was like, it's in that stuff where you learn not everything should be rushed. And actually, like you say, even the desert spaces, the places that can feel really arid and dry in our lives, they're teachers too, even though they might not be comfortable for us. And then what changes in our relationships if we're more patient? What kind of mum or aunt or dad or grandpa or friend do we become if we're more patient with people?
I remember a period in the development of Oasis, and I can even remember when it was. It was from about 1997 or 8 through to about 2004.
I remember this is when I joined.
And
Yeah.
and I remember that it was about 7 years. And I remember that Oasis began in 1985. Yeah, 1985. So there'd been like 12, 13 years. And, and then for me, it all became, nothing.
Felt like a wilderness.
Yeah, it did feel like a wilderness. It was really hard going for all sorts of reasons, because when an organisation begins to grow, it throws up loads of huge issues. And I remember this went on year after year after year. And I learned then, you just hang on, you keep doing. So I kept doing everything I did. When I was really excited by it, I just kept on doing it because I still believed it.
Yeah.
I still knew it was true. It was just,
it was hard.
It was a lot harder than it was, know. And it lasted about 7 years. And then it lifted for me, and away I went again. And I've never had a time like that or as long as that since. I've never had a desert that went on 7 years. Jesus only lasted 40 days, But honestly, it was a long desert. But I'm used to now those desert moments, days, weeks, sometimes months, horrible experiences in many ways arise. And it's still, so what can I learn here? How can I bow to the teacher?
Teacher in this moment.
Yeah.
And St. Paul, wrote about love being patient, didn't he? Love is patient, love is kind. He was really onto something, wasn't he? And he wrote that.
Yeah, love has to be patient. Infatuation isn't patient.
It's often impatient.
And it's impatient. It wears off because it wants something, it demands something. Love is a different thing. It is patient. And I don't know if I said this before. I may have said this before in one of our things, again, marrying people to each other. I often think, whatever you've done, everybody's so ready to rock up and say those vows, So you say, repeat after me. I take you, you, to be my lawful wedded husband or wife, to have and to hold, for rich or poor, in sickness, in health, to love and to cherish, etc., for better, for worse, all those kind of things, till death us do part. And everybody says them in such a chirpy way. They're so chirpy. And I think to myself, you have
Did you
no
just listen
idea.
To the words
What you've just signed up to. Did you mean
Signed
that?
your life away.
And I realised that you can't understand. Actually, that's the truth. You can't understand. I don't think I've ever truly come across a couple that I'm married hundreds of them, who understood the depth of those words. And I don't blame them. I don't think I understood those words when I got married. It's all kind of woohoo. But the patience and sticking with it in the for better and the for worse, in the poorer as well as the richer, in the sickness as in the health, to love and to cherish through all those times when it's all awkward and it's all conversations you don't really want to have and all of that kind of, that requires patience, and it's hard. Yeah. But it's rewarding when you stick in the desert instead of trying to run out of it or run away from it.
Yeah. You know this, we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast before, but when I was in hospital earlier this year, it's about this time last year, I started to get ill. And I remember kind of coming round when I'd been in the resus room and all the rest of it with what was wrong with me, and that I'd had a CT scan, and there's a consultant came round, stood at the end of my bed and just went, Jill, you're going to have to be really patient to get well. Which I thought, so here I am, and I'm patient, and you're asking me to be
You are
patient.
patient.
Yeah. And it's what you choose. Like you say, Steve, it's in those moments, you always have a choice. I am going to choose to just allow patience to take its course, and I'm going to go with patience, or I'm going to try and hurry this along, which would be a really stupid thing to do. What I really need to do is choose the path of being patient. And that works out in relationships, it works out at work, it shows up in every decision. Choosing to be patient, I think, gets us to a much smarter place, doesn't it? We make smarter decisions. Your point of earlier on, we don't react, but we take that time to just think, okay.
Absolutely. And this great conversation, and I've got this terrible fear that talking away like this, I'm going to have something that I need to be very patient about later today or tomorrow, and
lose it.
Yeah, so it's great though, isn't it?
Yeah,
so it's like,
the reality,
so what am I
going?
What am I going to be patient? Actually, be patient about?
Yeah.
What are those irritating things in my life right now that are happening that I wish would go away? And though I wish they would go away, how can I learn to be patient in them until they go away?
Yeah.
There you go. You've given me something to work on.
Love is patient. Thank you, Steve.